Demons can actually possess you, use you, so you can give them souls.
Before we get into today's video, I just want to let you guys know that this video is for educational purposes only. Please remember to be kind to everybody everywhere, in your everyday life, in your home, in the grocery store, and especially in the comment section down below. Please do not show hate to anybody, anywhere. So good morning, good morning, good morning. How's everybody doing today? I hope you all are having an amazing day. I hope you all are having a wonderful week. I hope y'all are enjoying spooky week. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about a situation that happened back in around the 2010s. And these types of stories are incredibly fascinating to me. If you guys don't know, I personally do not believe in ghosts. I don't believe in ghost, but I definitely believe in spirits. I believe in demonic entities. I believe in the spiritual realm. And today's video touches on those things. Before we get into it though, I did want to let you guys know, if you don't already know, hi, my name is Christina. I do have a second channel, which is Casually Christina. We just do things more casually over there. I also have a Patreon. My Patreon's for 18 and up. And over there we talk about more personal stuff. We go live over there. There is a $2 tier for all the true crime stuff that cannot go onto YouTube due to their terms and policies. I post that over on my Patreon under the $2 tier. Just make sure you read the full about section and what each tier offers before you join. I'm also on Facebook, Instagram, and Snapchat, and I'm also on Like to Know It, and Like to Know It is a platform where you can find links to a lot of the things that I like or things that y'all ask about, household items, clothing items, workout stuff, cooking utensils, makeup, jewelry, just about anything you can think of. I post those links over on my Like to Know It, and all of those platforms are linked down in the description box if you would like to check me out. So have y'all seen the new movie on Netflix called The Deliverance? Did you know that it is inspired by the true story of a haunting? If not, get ready, because this story is a wild one. I'm going to do like I typically do. I am going to tell y'all this story from the best of my ability with the public information that is already out there. Everything in this video is alleged. I don't know any of these people. Go do your own research, form your own opinions. And at the end of this video, I'm going to tell y'all what I think really happened, how I think this all started, and my opinions on everything. So if you want to know that, make sure you stay to the end of the video. So let's talk about the haunting of Latoya Ammons. In November of 2011, Latoya Ammons and her mother, Rosa Campbell, and Latoya's 3 little ones, who were at the time ages 7, 9, and 12, moved into a rental house located at 3860 Carolina Street in Gary, Indiana. Now, this was a quiet street. It was in what some people would say maybe not so nice part of town, but it was a little home. The family needed somewhere to stay, and so they moved in. Now, Latoya thought moving into this home would be a new start for her and her family. It was definitely a new start, but it was not the new start that Latoya had hoped for. Far from it, actually. Just days after Latoya and her family moved in, Latoya says the first strange thing that she remembers happening is when all of a sudden these big black flies started swarming her screened-in porch. This was in December, and it was very cold.
I noticed there was like horse flies on the inside porch, and this was, the beginning of winter. So that was very odd to me.
Latoya says that they tried getting rid of the flies multiple times, but they just kept coming back. Then Rosa, Latoya's mother, said that she initially heard footsteps on the basement steps and the basement door was creaking, which she said that she somewhat played off until later when she said that she saw this like shadowy figure of a man pacing in the living room and a wet boot print on the floor. This was completely unexplainable. How could this be when no one should have been in the living room? Her and Latoya both said that these noises usually happened after midnight and would continue even if they locked the basement door. Then, On March 10th, so a couple of months later after they moved in, it was about 2 a.m. when Latoya says that her 12-year-old daughter started literally levitating above her bed. That night, Latoya's daughter had a friend over for a sleepover who also witnessed this. Now, remember this. I want y'all to be taking notes of people other than just Latoya, her mother, the three little ones, more than just them, who witnessed these events. Latoya started absolutely screaming and calling everyone to come into her daughter's room to pray. As you can imagine, you walk into your daughter's room and you see her levitating off the bed. She's hollering. Once Latoya's daughter was back on the bed and came to consciousness, she said that she had absolutely no memory of what had just happened. Latoya and Rosa say that the girl that was over there for a sleepover said that she would never be coming back to their house again after that, as you can imagine. At this point, it was undeniable in Latoya's eyes that something supernatural was happening. She decided to start calling the local churches, but most of them refused to help or even listen to what she had to say. One church, however, told them to try cleaning the home with bleach and ammonia and to use oil to draw crosses on every door and every window. Latoya did so, but the occurrences still hadn't stopped. Latoya and Rosa even went as far as to speak to two different clairvoyants who said that the home had at least 200 spirits in it. These clairvoyants told Latoya and Rosa that they needed to move out of this house immediately. But Latoya and Rosa couldn't just pack up and move. They were renting and they were tied into a lease that would be just way too expensive to break. Instead, Latoya started putting up religious figures all around her house. In the basement specifically, Latoya put up an altar, and on a table she put a white tablecloth and statues of Mary, Joseph, and Jesus on it. She also set up a Bible on the table with it turned to the page of Psalms 91. You will not fear the terror of night, nor the arrow by the flies by day, nor the pestilence that stalks in the darkness, nor the plague that destroys at midday. Now, as you can imagine, I would have to guess that Latoya and Rosa were hoping that the things that they were thinking were not, as far as their minds were going. They were hoping that they were going to put all this stuff up. It was going to go away.
And I told my daughter, I said, they're going to make it look like we're hurting these children. So we're going to have to get some help some kind of place, some kind of way. We got to convince somebody that this is actually going on.
They were desperate. And again, they couldn't just move. So they decided that they were going to sage the entire house. They say that the smoke from the sage was so thick that they could barely breathe. Latoya said after doing all of that, nothing happened for 3 days. She thought that it might have worked at this point, but then things got worse. Her children started acting very strange. Now again, they were 7, 9, and 12 years old at this point. And according to both Latoya and Rosa, not only did they start acting different, but they also looked different. They say that their eyes started to bulge a bit, and they even had these evil smiles on their faces, and their voices would deepen during these episodes of what they assumed was demonic possession. One time, Rosa said that the 7-year-old son completely flew out of the bathroom as if he had been thrown out, and that a headboard out of nowhere hit him in the head. It hit his head so hard that he ended up having to get stitches. The daughter said sometimes she felt like she was being held down and choked to a point where she could not speak or move. She also said that she was hearing voices that told her that she would never see her family again and she would not live long. This absolutely terrified her. Latoya herself said that one time she thought that she had even been possessed. She felt weak, she felt lightheaded, and warm before her body started shaking and she lost complete control of herself. Latoya said some nights her and her family were so overwhelmed they would go spend the night at a hotel if they had a little extra cash to do so. Now, things seemed better when they were all outside of the home, at least at this point. Latoya then decided that it was time to reach out to their family physician on April 19th of 2012. She was, of course, afraid that the doctor would think that she was crazy, but she really didn't know what else to do. In later interviews with the media, this doctor said that it was bizarre and that he had never heard of anything like what Latoya told him in his whole 20 years of practicing medicine. He said that he was actually scared to even walk into the room with them. However, in his medical notes, he wrote things like delusions of ghosts in the home, hallucinations, and delusional. And I'm not even going to go into how frustrating that is. And in my unprofessional opinion, if he was so spooked of the things that he was seeing that he didn't even want to go into the room because it gave him the heebie-jeebies, but then he turned around and wrote that in the notes, and some people would think just to maybe cover his own tail is, yeah. But this is when things really started to get scary, though, because according to official reports, while at this doctor's office, the medical staff reported that they observed the 7-year-old boy be lifted up and thrown into the wall with nobody touching him. You can read it. I will put part of the notes right here, a screenshot, in the medical report. There's all these medical professionals in the room, and the 7-year-old is lifted up in front of everybody and thrown against the wall. This is when the office staff ended up calling 911, and the children were transported to the ER, where things only got scarier from there. I mean, it didn't stop. Latoya says when they first got to the ER, the medical staff were laughing at her. They were like, okay, ghosts in the house. Woo, yeah, your son was levitated and he was picked up, thrown against the wall. Gotcha. They did not believe what Latoya said had happened at the doctor's office. They thought that she was either making things up or she was mentally ill herself. So they ended up calling DCS, which is the Department of Children's Services. The person who actually called isn't named in these documents, but they said that they believed that Latoya was encouraging her children's strange behavior and that they believed this to be abuse. Meanwhile, when the 7-year-old woke up in the ER, he started screaming and thrashing around. It allegedly took 5 men to hold him down. When the DCS case manager, Valerie Washington, arrived at the hospital, she gave the following story to the police in her report. Miss Washington said, hospital personnel examined Latoya and her children and found them to be healthy with no marks or bruises on their bodies. Now, this is important. She also reported that the hospital psychiatrist evaluated Latoya and determined that she was of complete sound mind. When Miss Washington interviewed the youngest 7-year-old, she said that he started to growl with his teeth showing and that his eyes were rolling in the back of his head. She said that at one point, he locked his hands around his older brother's throat and refused to let go until personnel literally pried his fingers and his hands off of his brother. Later that evening, Miss Washington and an RN named Willie Walker brought both brothers into a small exam room for an interview. Their grandmother, Rosa, was also with them in this room as well. Miss Washington said that the 7-year-old again began to growl as he was staring into his brother's eyes. He then said, "It is time to die, and I will kill you," in a very unnatural, deep voice, according to this report. Miss Washington said in the report that while the 7-year-old was saying these things, the older brother started headbutting Rosa, the grandmother, in the stomach. Rosa was so scared that she grabbed her grandson's hands and started praying over him. Then something happened that no one had ever seen before. The 9-year-old brother all of a sudden had a weird grin on his face when he proceeded to walk backwards up the wall, all the way up the wall to the ceiling before flipping over Rosa, his grandmother, and literally landing on his feet. all while holding the hands of Rosa. Now, this is corroborated in the report by Willie, the RN, that was also in the room. Okay, this was not just something that the grandmother said happened. The professionals were literally in the room when he walked up the wall backwards, up to the ceiling, flipped, and landed on his literal feet. Now, both Miss Washington and Willie Walker completely ran out of the room after this. You can imagine. They're like, oh my gosh. According to this report, Miss Washington then told the attending doctor what had just happened. He, of course, did not believe her. So much so that he went into the room where the boys were and asked the 9-year-old to do it again. This doctor wanted him to show him how he walked up the wall. The 9-year-old said that he did not remember what just happened, and he physically showed the doctor that he could not walk up the wall like that again. It's like he had no memory of what had happened. And part of the report said that, like, they tried to get him to, and he was unsteady on his feet. He could, obviously, I don't know anybody that could just walk up the wall backwards, do a flip, and land on their feet. The following day after this, it happened to be the youngest son's birthday. He was turning 8 years old. He spent his birthday at this hospital. This is when Miss Washington told Latoya that they were going to be taking emergency custody of all 3 children. Now, when asked why, Miss Washington said because she believed that all of them were experiencing spiritual and emotional distress. She also believed that there was a mental illness component at play and that Latoya's home was not safe for them. This is when the hospital chaplain reached out to Reverend Michael. Now, this reverend had been the priest at St. Stephen Parish in Maryville for more than 10 years at this point. The hospital chaplain asked the Reverend if he would be willing to perform an exorcism. The Reverend went out to the home to speak with Latoya and Rosa on April 22nd. And according to the Reverend, he had been speaking with the family for 2 hours when just completely, all of a sudden, he noticed flickering lights in the bedroom. He took this to mean whatever spirit that was in the home must have been scared of him. The Reverend said during that same interview, the blinds started moving on their own and he himself saw unexplained wet boot prints throughout the living room. The Reverend decided to bless the house. He prayed over each room while he sprinkled them with holy water. He then told Latoya and Rosa to go and stay with someone else because the house was not safe, and so they did. A week later, Latoya and Rosa had to go back to the house so Miss Washington, that DCS case manager, could come and inspect it. The police captain, Captain Austin, and 2 other officers accompanied her. So she goes there, the DCS worker. She's got the captain officer, and she's got 2 more officers. There's 4 of them going into the home. According to them, they were just curious. Of course, they want to go into the home. They're like, okay, I think the DCS worker at this point, she saw what she saw, but she was still, like most people, trying to make sense of it. Like, okay, something else is going on here. These officers tried to record the conversations that they had with Latoya and Rosa. However, one of the officer's recorders malfunctioned according to the police records. This officer said that the power light flashed like it needed new batteries, even though he had just put brand new batteries in it. Another officer that was able to record audio said that when he got home and went to listen to the audio back, he heard an unknown voice whisper, "Hey."
All over the place here.
That's well.
I'm surprised the fire department hasn't been here.
Captain Austin said that he took some pictures of the house on his iPhone, and in the pictures there seemed to be this weird silhouettes that he could not explain. He also said that on his way home, the radio in his police cruiser malfunctioned. Here's a picture taken at the house that appears to show a figure in the window when no one was inside. When Captain Austin got home, he said that his garage door wouldn't open. Then the seat in his personal vehicle moved back and forth on its own. He had this seat checked at a local dealership, and the mechanic said that the motor on the driver's seat had been broken and that if he hadn't come in to have it fixed, It could have led to a distraction that could have caused an accident later down the road. Now, after all of this, Captain Austin said that he definitely was no longer a skeptic. All the while, the DCS investigation was still ongoing. DCS was awarded temporary custody for the duration of the investigation. Now, during that investigation, DCS did find that there had been previous DCS cases against Latoya for educational neglect back in 2009. This meant that the children were not attending as much school as they should have been. But other than that, there was nothing else to indicate any type of serious stuff going on at the house or with Latoya and her children. The youngest son was examined by a psychologist who said that she believed that he was faking his possession. She said that his stories became bizarre, fragmented, and illogical, and that he only acted possessed when they talked about demons. Whenever they talked about anything else, he seemed totally normal. She said that she believed that he did not suffer from any true psychotic disorder, and the psychologist said that in her report, this appears to be an unfortunate and a sad case of a child who has been induced into a delusional system perpetrated by his mother and potentially reinforced by other relatives. A different psychologist evaluated the older brother and sister and came to a similar conclusion, yet all three continued to insist that they were possessed by demons. They told their psychologist that they saw shadowy figures in their home and heard strange noises. The daughter said that she'd go into these weird trances and she did not know what was happening to her. And they never ever, not once to anybody, said that their mother was influencing them. So the DCS set up a family plan for Latoya. Basically, this was a bunch of rules that she had to follow in order to see her children and eventually get custody back of them. One of these rules said that the children should not discuss demons and being possessed, and that they needed to take responsibility for their actions. DCS also ordered that all three continue to participate in therapy. As far as Latoya, DCS said that they could credit her for having a close bond with her children, but they said that she needed to use an alternate form of discipline, not directly related to religion and demon possession. They asked her to please work on that when they gave her supervised visitation. DCS also told Latoya that she needed to find appropriate housing before she could have her children back. As Latoya continued to work on getting her family back, the investigation into what was going on at her home continued. Latoya, Rosa, Captain Austin, the other police officers from the initial visit, and the Reverend went back to Latoya's home in May. They ran a canine around the house to see if it would hit on any strange scents. Well, the canine didn't. One of the officers dug a hole underneath the basement stairs to see if anything had been buried there that might have been causing this activity in the home. This officer found a pink press-on fingernail, a pair of underwear, a political shirt pin, a lid for a cooking pan, socks, candy wrappers, and a heavy metal object. The Reverend performed more blessings on the home. A different DCS caseworker showed up this time. Miss Washington, who was the original caseworker, said that she did not want to go back into the home, so she ended up sending someone else, which is very interesting after what she saw in the first initial report, what she said, and then how the report ended up. I can tell you, in my opinion, what happened. She saw what she saw. She wrote it down. Her higher-ups probably told her, we can't be saying this. Come on. We cannot blame demon possession on what's going on with these kids. And so she switched it. She said, I ain't going back in that home no more after the things that she saw. Now, allegedly, when this new DCS worker came into the home, they kept checking out this home, and they noticed that the blinds, there kept being this oil that was dripping from the blinds, and it was coming out of nowhere. Allegedly, the DCS worker went up and touched the oil on the blinds. This is when the whole left part of her hand, including her left pinky finger, started to tingle and turn white and felt as it was broken. 10 minutes later, this woman said that she felt like she was having a panic attack and she could not breathe. So it was other people that witnessed it said that it was all of the color just drained from her hand. You know, your hand has a pinkish tone to it, but it just all drained from her hand like it was white. So after she felt like she was having a panic attack, she walked outside and stayed out of the house. The officers in the home noted in their report that they found this oil-like substance dripping on the walls and on the blinds of the home, but they could not figure out where it was coming from. To make sure it wasn't the oil that Latoya had previously poured around the home, the officers cleaned it up. They sealed the house for 25 minutes. No one went in during this time. And after 25 minutes was up, the officers went back into the home and they say that the oil had reappeared. Gives me the heebie-jeebies. After this is when the Reverend said, okay, we're gonna perform an exorcism. According to the Reverend, he started with what he called a minor exorcism on Latoya. He said the ritual consisted of prayers, statements, and appeals to cast out the demons. The two officers and the new DCS case manager were present for this as well.
It was pretty much without incident until we get to the part of your name, and you asked for its name. Now, so far she's always been silent. And I says, is your name whatever? And then all of a sudden she started convulsing and such. So now once you have a name, you kind of attack it. Whenever you would praise God in Latin, no reaction. But you start condemning the demon, condemning, the evil spirit, all of a sudden she's reacting to that. And then we'll go back, and the moment you go back to praising God, she would stop reacting.
The new DCS case manager said that not only did she feel something was off during the exorcism, but she also had a bout of medical problems afterwards. A week after she visited the house for the last time, the new DCS case manager said that she got third-degree burns from a motorcycle, and within 30 days, she also broke 3 ribs jet skiing, broke a hand by hitting a table, and then broke her ankle while running in flip-flops. All of this within 30 days of touching that oil. I mean, you can call it all a coincidence, but that sure is a lot of them. And you guys got to understand that if all of this was just some hokey pokey made up by Latoya, somebody would have known by now. One of the officers would have been like, okay, listen, we do not have time to be in here in your house, Latoya, while y'all play around with the ghost stories. But they continued to come back, means they were experiencing something that they were going back and telling their higher ups, like, yeah, something's going on in that house. Latoya said that she could literally feel something wanting to come out of her. And when it finally did, she fell immediately asleep. After this, Latoya and her mother moved to Indianapolis. Everything seemed to be okay, but they had the Reverend come over and bless their new home just in case. Latoya did end up getting custody back of her children in November of 2012, and the children said that they felt more safe than ever in their new home. In a DCS case note from January of 2013, the caseworker wrote, "No demonic presences or spirits in the home." Latoya says that it wasn't the psychologist who fixed their problems. It was God. According to the landlord of the home, his home became a spectacle after Latoya moved out, and the media had been reporting on her story. He says that he never personally experienced anything strange in the home before or after Latoya lived in it.
There's 5 people that saw this happen, and they're, different walks of life. That does change things a little bit. I find it hard to believe that all 5 of those people will say this just to be saying it.
Eventually, the star of the show Ghost Hunters, Zach Baggins, ended up going and purchasing the home and filmed a documentary in it. If you guys have not seen it, it's pretty interesting, and it shows a lot of footage and a lot from the people, including the first DCS worker, the one that was at the hospital, the one that she's in it, and also the captain from the police department. He's there. They all are interviewed in this documentary. When me and my husband were watching it, I'm asking my husband, because he's more skeptical about certain things. And he said, that is a lot of people. This guy, Zach, ended up demolishing the home after he filmed this documentary. Now, what do I think? I definitely think something was going on in that home and then with the family. I think that the way that these items were found under the stairs where the things started at, I think there is a really good chance that somebody was down there, maybe the previous renters or something like that, and they were trying to summon something. Because see, a lot of times people think that this is jokes, or, you know, getting your candles and your items and doing some sort of like voodoo, or, you know, oh, I don't believe in demons. Let's just get the candles out and summon them and offer ourselves up like it's no big deal. And something ends up really happening. That's what I think happened. I definitely believe the family. And I actually seen a couple of the kids who were kids back then, but now they're adults, on TikTok do a Q&A about it. And they say that they're fine now, but they still, and again, they're adults now, they still say that everything that they say happened back then really happened. And they say that they did not have a close connection with the Lord back then, but now they do because of that. And they truly believe that they were only saved because of now their faith in Jesus, in God. What do you think? Have you heard about this? Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Other than that, I love you guys. Thank y'all so much for watching, and I will see y'all in the next video. Love you guys. Bye.